Mask, the Crystallizer.
Masked crusaders working overtime, fighting crime, fighting crime.
Venom have stolen a top-secret weapon, the Crystallizer, which can turn people into crystal, explained Matt Tracker to his team of mask agents. It's our job to stop them using it. Moments later, the agents were placing their re-powered masks on their heads. "Let's go," Matt said. As the agents moved towards their vehicles, they were stopped by Matt's son, Scott. "Can I come too, Dad?" he said. "No, it's too dangerous," Matt replied, secretly smiling at his son's bravery. "Gee, T-Bob, Dad never takes me anywhere," Scott complained. "I don't know, Scott," said T-Bob. "From what I know of the mission, it is dangerous, very dangerous." "The mission can't be that dangerous," Scott shouted, "so I'm going anyway." "I don't think you should," began T-Bob worriedly, but Scott had already raced off along the corridor. T-Bob easily caught up with Scott and decided that for Scott's safety he had better go along with him. Moments later they were speeding along the highway. "I checked out the details on the mask computer," Scott said as they traveled along. "I'm going to show Dad that I'm not a kid anymore." Meanwhile, Miles Mayhem, the leader of the evil organization Venom, was talking with his aide, Dagger. "This crystallizer is the weapon with which we will defeat Mask." Mayhem smiled evilly as he continued. "This device will turn all unprotected life into crystal. We will then threaten to destroy them unless Mask surrenders to me." "Hey, that's perfect blackmail, Mayhem," Dagger said with glee. Scott Tracker had just arrived in the town when suddenly he found he could not move. "Oh no!" T-Bob shouted. "This is Venom's work. Now what can I do?" Above the town, on the hill, Mayhem sneered. "Let's see Mask solve this, if they can get past my trap." Further down the highway, Mayhem's trap snapped shut as a massive explosion ripped open the highway right in front of the mask agents. "Emergency avoidance!" Matt yelled, and the intended victims swerved with well-practiced ease to avoid the killer blast. "Mayhem's playing for keeps," Sato said to Matt as they drew close to the town. "Well, Spectrum warned us that it might be a trap, and as usual, they were right," Matt replied as the vehicle slowed down and the drivers prepared for anything that Venom might throw at them. As the Rhino moved closer to the town, the dashboard data screen showed static and then slowly came back to life, and the face of Mayhem glared out at them. "I have turned all the townspeople into crystal. Unless you hand over your masks in 1 hour, I will destroy them all," he threatened. "Look for yourselves." Mayhem continued as the screen changed to show several people who had been turned into crystal. Matt was shocked to see that one of the victims was Scott. "You have 1 hour," Mayhem repeated as the screen went dead. Matt ordered his teammates out of their vehicles. "Any sound we make could shatter one of those crystal people," he said. "Just like glass breaking in a shockwave," Sato added. "Exactly," said Matt. "So we must continue on foot." "If they harm one hair on my son's head," Matt began. "Don't worry, Matt," said Sato reassuringly. "Sato's right, Matt," Hawks added. "Mask is here now, and that's always bad news for Venom." Matt prayed that his friend was right. "Our masks will protect us from the rays," Matt reasoned, "so it's up to us to get that weapon and change these innocent people back to normal." As they walked along the streets, Matt couldn't help thinking about his son and what he would do to Mayhem if Scott was harmed. Not far away in a nearby street, Dagger had spotted T-Bob. "I'll take care of him," he thought, as a fiery jet shot from his mask, hitting the metal droid. "So, Mask think they can defeat me with a child's toy, do they?" Mayhem gloated.
Say, boss, does this mean that Mask are finished?"
Dagger asked. Mayhem laughed and replied in a cold, hard voice. "Soon. Very soon." Unknown to Venom, Buddy Hawks had been spying on them through the window. Having heard everything he needed, he ran back to his teammates. It took only moments to explain what had happened. "Now that we know where Venom are, we can put my plan into effect," Matt said, and outlined his plan to his friends. Minutes later, Matt used his ultra-flash mask to create a blinding light in the street. As Venom ran out to investigate, Hawks used his penetrator mask to slip through the wall and into the room where the crystallizer was kept. As soon as Hawks entered the room, he could see where the crystallizer was housed. Knowing that he hadn't a second to lose, Hawks dashed across the room and deactivated the evil device. Immediately, the low hum stopped sounding from the machine. "The people should change back now, which means we can use our masks without any fear," thought Hawks as he made for the door. Outside, a fierce battle raged between Mask and Venom. The streets were filled with the eerie sounds of the super masks as flashes and blasts shot from either side of the street. The noise began to attract the recently freed townspeople who came to investigate. "There he is!" shouted one of the leaders of the townspeople as he pointed at Mayhem. Suddenly, the angry population burst into the street and began to chase the evil warlord back to his waiting switchblade. Behind him, an equally scared Dagger ran towards his jackhammer. Within moments, Mayhem and Dagger had made it to their escape vehicles and fled the scene. "Gee, Dad," Scott said to his happy father, "I'm sorry for doing what I did." "You should never do anything on your own," Matt replied. "Parents tell kids to behave to protect them, not to hurt them." Matt could tell by the look in his son's eyes that he had learned his lesson. "At least we stopped Venom," Sato said. "Yes," agreed Matt, "and we will continue to stop them and foil their evil plans, especially when they threaten the freedom of innocent people." Mask, Robots of Mayhem.
Masked crusaders working overtime, fighting crime, fighting crime.
The Autodroid Factory was the most advanced robot construction factory in the world. It was for this reason that Miles Mayhem, the ruthless leader of Venom, had ordered his evil organization to take over the factory. "The factory is now under your command," Sly Rax reported to Mayhem.
Yeah, and when you give the word, we will begin to build the new war droids you have designed,"
Dagger added. "Good," replied the evil Mayhem. "Then I can launch my robot attack on Mask." Mayhem gave the order, and not long after, a whole army of robots was constructed in the factory. "Mask won't stand a chance against these." Mayhem chuckled to himself as the long line of war droids marched out of the factory. Each war droid was fitted with lasers, cannons, missiles, and shell-proof armor. Under Mayhem's orders, they were the perfect machines of total destruction. "Now to wipe out Mask," Mayhem boasted as he led his attack on Boulder Hill. "Mask headquarters ahead," Rax reported as they drew close. Inside Boulder Hill, Scott Tracker watched his father and two Mask agents working on T-Bob. "I can't see what's wrong with it," Sato said to Matt. "But you reported that T-Bob just began to act funny, and only a few minutes ago at that." Suddenly, a voice came from T-Bob's mouth. It was Mayhem giving order to his army of robots. Because T-Bob was also a robot, or droid, he had picked up the message. "So that's what's causing the trouble," Matt exclaimed. "Another Venom plot." The mask agents ran to the special mask energizer room and put on their repowered helmets. "Let's go and stop Venom," Matt shouted as he led the team to their vehicles. Matt and Sato climbed into the powerful Rhino as Turner started the engine in his Condor bike. As the super vehicles kicked into action, the mask agents set off to defend Boulder Hill. As the agents drew close to the approaching war droids, the droids opened fire. Turner quickly converted his Condor into the helicopter mode and flew above the droids. "There are hundreds of them," he reported to Matt. Condor and Rhino opened fire on the droids, exploding several of them into spare parts, but the droids kept coming. "It's hopeless," Sato said. "There are just too many of them." Reluctantly, Matt ordered them to return to Boulder Hill. Kablam! Thoom! The sounds of battle followed the mask agents as they sped back to their base. Once inside Boulder Hill, Matt gave the order to convert the base for the fight ahead. "I'm way ahead of you," Sato said, as he punched the codes into the mask computers. Outside Boulder Hill, big changes began to take place. The shop front was shielded with armor plates. The petrol pumps became twin laser cannons. The gas sign flipped down to reveal another set of lasers. And finally, the tip of Boulder Hill itself folded away to reveal more weaponry. The mask team immediately opened fire on the army of robots. And for a moment, the robots were halted as mask firepower rained down on them. An almost continuous spray of laser and power bolts shot from the guns around Boulder Hill. Many found their metallic targets with a heart-thudding blam, and still the droids kept coming. Inside Boulder Hill, Sato told Matt about his plan. "Since these droids are under the control of Mayhem, we should be able to find a way to override his commands," he reasoned. "Go for it," confirmed Matt, knowing full well that this could be the last chance for Mask. Sato, who was one of the top electronic designers in the world, set about his task. "We can assume that the robots are similar to T-Bob," Sato told himself. "Otherwise, he wouldn't have picked up Mayhem's commands earlier." 20 minutes later, Sato and Matt stood on top of Boulder Hill. Sato quickly explained to Matt that he was going to send out 2 signals, one to tell the droids to attack, and one to tell them to retreat. Immediately, Matt could see the result as the confused droids turned on each other and opened fire. Zap! Crunch! The sounds of mechanical warfare sounded around the Mask base as the droids attacked each other. "Time for Mask to pay a visit to Venom," Matt said as the team made ready to drive out of the base. Moments later, Mask drove out of the base and into the army of droids. "My new program ensures that they will fight each other and not us," Sato informed Matt and Turner. "Well, that sure is good news, buddy," a relieved Turner replied. The Mask team drove through the mass of fighting machines. Within moments, they came face to face with the evil Venom vehicles and their merciless drivers. "It's clobberin' time," shouted Turner as he converted his Condor bike into the Condor Copter. Mayhem was furious to see that once again, Mask had escaped. For the next few minutes, he tried to beat them in fair combat, but deep down inside, he knew he had lost. In a last-ditch attempt to save the day, he launched his Stinger rockets at the Rhino. In an instant, Matt had launched the Rhino's warhead missile and exploded the Stinger rockets into harmless fragments. Seeing that his plan had failed, Mayhem ordered Venom to retreat. As he left, he swore he would return. With Venom gone, Sato used his device to turn the droids off. The battle was over, and all that Mask had to do was use the Sato invention to march the army of droids back to the factory. Once we return them, we can take them apart so that they cannot cause any more harm, Matt said. It's a pity we can't do the same with Mayhem, he added. And everybody laughed. Mask. Underwater Mayhem.
Masked crusaders working overtime, fighting crime, fighting crime.
Mask had just been given a very important mission. The president of the Peaceful Nations Alliance was to visit a special underwater complex, and they had to guard him, which meant that they must energize their masks. The first part of their mission was to escort the president to the complex. To anyone who didn't know how good Mask was at its job, the president looked unprotected. The Mask vehicles Rhino and Gator were, however, perhaps the best guard in the world. The trio of vehicles arrived safely at the top-secret docking area and transferred into the aqua bubble for the last leg of the trip to the complex. So far, so good, Matt thought to himself as the bubble slowly sank towards its target. Suddenly, from out of the cover of giant underwater reeds, moved the Piranha. Mayhem's underwater attack vehicle, Sato exclaimed as the first blast from the venom machine hit the aqua bubble. Caught off guard by the Piranha attack, Mask didn't notice that Cliff Dagger, Venom's hotshot agent, had swum underneath the aqua bubble. "Torch on," he said as a jet of flame arced out of his mask. Trapped inside the bubble, Mask faced a double-sided attack. The Piranha continued to fire on the engine while Dagger used his torch mask to heat the underside of the bubble. "My flame is so hot that it even works underwater," Dagger thought with a smirk. "Luckily, they began their attack too late," Matt observed as the aqua bubble glided into the massive airlock in the complex. "The big problem is," said a worried Sato, "that this was supposed to be a top-secret visit. There is no one else at the complex." "Ever since the PNA built this complex, we have kept sensors here. When they reported yesterday that everyone was being sent away, we knew something big was being planned. But to capture Mask and the president, that is a super bonus," sneered Venom's leader. Inside the complex, Mask tried to make the most of a bad situation. "Our first job is to protect the president," Matt said, "even if it means the end of Mask." "Earthquake!" yelled Hayes as the whole complex was shaken by a powerful shockwave. "And I bet I can guess the real cause of it." "It looks like Venom are throwing everything they have at us," Matt complained. "And we're trapped here. Helpless." "Now we're in for it," said Hayes, pointing to a crack that was inching its way along the protective dome. "We've only moments to seal it," Matt yelled. "The food store!" Sato shouted and ran into a large building facing them. "What the—" Hayes began to say, but Matt interrupted him. "It's okay, Dusty. Sato always does that when he gets an idea. Well, I sure hope it's a good one. That wall won't last much longer." "I think I know what he's doing," Matt said as he watched Sato use his lifter mask to snap one of the pipes carrying the icy cold air into the food plant. "That gas is about 10 degrees below freezing point." "Got it!" Hayes yelled as he watched the freezing gas turn the water near the crack into solid ice. The Mask agents watched as the gas quickly formed an icy seal on the crack and saved the complex. "If we could cripple Venom's weapons, they wouldn't stand a chance against us," Hayes said as he made for the airlock.
Moments later, he was swimming towards the piranha. Time to give Venom a shock, he joked to himself as he fired his backlash mask. Immediately, a shock wave shot out from the mask. As it hit the piranha, the Venom machine began to shake. "Better back off," said Rax as he moved his machine away. "Strike one for Mask," Hayes murmured with a smile. "I have lost the element of surprise," Mayhem complained. "I had hoped to capture the President and take over the complex, but now I know I have only one chance." As Mayhem said this, he pressed a button and fired a megabomb at the complex. "Anything the megabomb touches, it absorbs and destroys," Mayhem said with a smirk. "Once it touches the outside of the complex, the President and Mask will be no more."
As Mayhem spoke, the megabomb moved ever closer to the complex. "Megabomb!" shouted Tracker as he spotted the dreadful device moving towards them. "Dusty? Sato? We have one chance." Sato interrupted him. "We're way ahead of you, Matt," he said, and the two masked agents began using their masks to free the ice around the complex. Soon a large chunk of ice snapped off and began to float upwards. "Ice is lighter than water. That's why you always have ice on top," Sato said as the icy chunk drifted into the path of the megabomb. As planned, the ice drifted into the megabomb, causing it to explode harmlessly outside the complex. "Mayhem's used up all his underwater weapons, so he won't bother us again just yet," Tracker observed. With Venom gone, Hayes re-entered the complex and joined his friends and the President. "Well done, Mask," said the President. "Thank you, sir," replied Tracker. "But we were only doing our duty." "And speaking of duty," continued the President, "I still have an inspection tour to make. We can't let a little thing like an attack by Venom stop us." As the group made the inspection, they were all happy to know that Venom had once again been outwitted. Mask. Mayhem's Monster Madness.
Masked crusaders working overtime, fighting crime, fighting crime.
Miles Mayhem, the ruthless leader of the evil organization Venom, the vicious evil network of mayhem, peered through his binoculars. "Perfect. They suspect nothing," he boasted to his fellow Venom member Cliff Dagger. Mayhem was standing on a small mountain outcrop, spying on the Corman Old World Films location camped below. "Is the robot there, boss?" asked Dagger. Mayhem's evil laughter told Dagger everything he needed to know. All they had to do was take it. Various technicians and actors moved about the film set, unaware that cold, calculating eyes were watching them. Lying against a camera trailer with his guitar in hand was Brad Turner. To most people, he was simply a highly talented rock guitarist now working on his first film. Not many knew that he was also a member of the top-secret organization Mask, the Mobile Armored Strike Command. Brad was waiting for the next scene in the film to be dressed by the prop department before he could begin work. He was playing the role of a guitarist who uses music to make friends with a giant lizard-like monster. "It sure feels good to know that the monster is just a mess of wires and cables," Brad said to his on-set friend, Martin Wallace. "I agree, old chap," Wallace replied, as he looked up at the towering 20-meter-high robot to be used in the film. Brad followed his gaze and asked, "Can you imagine what damage that thing could cause if it was real?" As Brad downed the last of his coffee, a buzzer sounded and he knew it was time to return to the set. "Let's go and make a film," he joked as he stood up. As he and Martin neared the cameras, Martin held up his hand. "Hold it, Brad. Can you hear something?" he asked, looking round the busy set. "Sure can, big guy," replied Brad, "and I don't like what I hear." Without giving an explanation to Martin, Brad ran towards his dressing room trailer. There was no mistaking that sound, he thought to himself as he opened the trailer door. Almost immediately, the ground began to shake and tremble under the impact of laser and cannon fire. "Venom," confirmed Brad, removing the mask communicator and patching a signal through to mask headquarters in Boulder Hill. Outside the trailer, Mayhem's Switchblade copter buzzed into view, its sleek black metal reflecting in the afternoon sun. From its side, several rockets and cannon shells were launched at the running film crew below. The Switchblade copter kept the crew busy with its reign of chaos as Sly Rax, the third member of the Venom team, raced forward on his Piranha cycle. The purple racing machine sped towards the gigantic, savage-looking robot monster. As soon as he was in range, Rax threw a small magnetic pad, which stuck on the chest plate of the robot. "Contact!" confirmed Sly Rax to Mayhem as he turned the battle cycle and sped away. "Perfect!" Mayhem smiled as his powerful hands moved towards the control panel on the display screen in the Switchblade. "Now it is time for Rossmann to live again." As soon as Mayhem had energized the circuit, the robotic eyes of the monster robot flashed open to reveal the red-eyed menace of a savage beast. A heart-stopping growl echoed from deep within the mechanical marvel. As the creature took its first faltering steps, the whole film crew were shocked by the sight before them. From inside the trailer, Brad could see what Mayhem had done, and immediately reported the facts over the Mask radio to Matt Tracker, the leader of Mask. Suddenly, the Mask radio went dead as the powerful foot of Rossmann crushed the trailer into scrap metal. Matt Tracker pulled up at the film set after a headlong dash in the mass combat vehicle Rhino and looked around the set for any sign of Brad. Both Matt and his co-pilot Sato jumped out of the vehicle. They were wearing their masks, which meant that no one on the film set knew their real identities. The police and army personnel had been alerted that Mask were on their way, and a special headquarters had been set up in one of the spare trailers. Matt and Sato entered the trailer and smiled as they spotted their old friend Brad, now wearing his mask too. Brad explained how he had just changed into his mask when the foot came crashing through the roof. Within a heartbeat, he had leapt through the open window and to safety. As Brad finished his explanation, Dusty Hayes and Hondo McClane arrived in their Mask Gator Jeep and joined the trio in the HQ. Now that the full team had arrived, Brad told them everything that had happened. When he had finished, Hondo McClane, who was a history teacher when he wasn't working for Mask, spoke out. "I seem to remember something about this Rossmann character," he said, walking over to the computer terminal on the side desk. He used the special Mask passcodes and downloaded all the information in the current on Rossmann. "Yep. Just look at that." Hondo pointed to the screen. "Of course," exploded Matt. "Rossmann is the mythical god of the local Hanga tribe. No doubt Mayhem is going to use the robot to trick the tribe into believing that Rossmann has returned." Matt ordered the Mask agents to prepare to follow the trail of destruction left by the robot, which led into the fearful depths of the jungle. For about 20 minutes, both the Mask Rhino and Gator Jeep plowed their way through the jungle undergrowth. Suddenly, a terrific blast hit the side of the Rhino and sent it spinning sideways into a line of small trees. "What's happened?" Matt radioed to the Gator Jeep, which was following close behind. "We have company," radioed Dusty Hayes. and it's big, green, and very angry. Immediately, Matt fired his vibration cannons from the front of the Rhino, using the dashboard computer to locate the target. A loud kathoom echoed through the jungle as the sonic pulses hit the target. Matt and Sato watched the sensor displays on the screen, and they knew that the attack had failed. "Gator, give us backup," requested Matt, trying to reverse the Rhino away from the approaching robot. "Will do," confirmed Hondo, as the Gator began its rapid conversion to full battle stations. Moments later, Matt and Sato could hear the barrage of firepower coming from the Gator jeep. Matt pulled the Rhino away from the fight and ordered the Gator to reverse out as well. At that moment, every spare weapon in the vehicles, along with the special powers of the masks, were being used to keep the robot at bay. The jungle lit up like an out-of-place fireworks display, as various shades of colors and strange sounds filled the warm air. "It's working," encouraged Sato. "Let's go." On Sato's command, the two vehicles sped backwards along the jungle trail and out of range of the robot monster. Several miles from the scene of the monster attack, Miles Mayhem was celebrating. "It looks like I have beaten Mask at last," he gloated to his evil followers. "This is a great day for Venom."
How long until we finish this caper?"
Sly Rax asked, filling his mug with coffee. Mayhem's eyes almost sparkled as he replied, "The natives will have mined the thrombium we need by nightfall. Then, once they have given the mineral to their god Rasman as a sacrifice, we will have the key to global power." Dagger, who had been sitting in silence, asked his leader the question that had been bothering him all day.
Why did we have to go to the trouble of stealing the robot to trick the natives? Why couldn't we have just forced them to show us where the thrombium is?
"Because," replied Mayhem, "the Hunga tribe would rather suffer great pain than do anything they felt was wrong. Nothing we could have done would have forced them to help us. But they will do whatever Rasman tells them." At that moment, a buzzer sounded in the cockpit of the Switchblade copter, which was parked nearby. Throwing his coffee cup to the ground, Mayhem ran as fast as his out-of-condition body would allow him towards the plane. He punched a few buttons on the panel, and a small screen came to life, showing the recent fight between Mask and the robot. The film company had a camera fixed to the robot so that they could control it, explained Mayhem as he watched his enemies being beaten by the monster. The more Mayhem watched the fight, the more excited he became. Eventually, he was banging his fist against the side of the Switchblade and laughing out loud. In between bouts of laughter, he would shout out, "We are unbeatable! Unbeatable!" His followers watched carefully, and for once, believed their leader. Meanwhile, the mask agents had pulled to a halt in a clearing in the jungle. Their sensors showed that Rasman wasn't coming after them, and so they stopped to discuss what their next step should be. "There has to be some way we can defeat old Green Features," Hayes was saying as he cleaned the jungle dirt from his backlash mask. "If this was a movie, it would be easy." "That's it," interrupted Matt. "A movie. Brad, how is the monster destroyed in the film script?" Brad grinned as he realized what Matt's plan was. "Of course. All we have to do is follow whatever was planned in the movie plot. I read the whole script before I came here. The monster is destroyed in a pit of acid, dissolved into nothingness." "But where are we going to find several gallons of acid?" asked McLean, as his teammates ran towards the two masked vehicles.
"Matt and I will take care of that,"
yelled Sato, boarding the Rhino.
"You three lure the robot to the sulfur caves on your computer map."
The masked agents divided up, and Sato explained his idea to Matt.
"We can use the sulfur in the mine to make an acid. Our masks will help us to dig a deep enough pit to put the acid in and hopefully trap the robot."
Within a short while, the mighty Rhino vehicle burst through the final ring of trees near the sulfur caves. By using the vehicles and combining the powers of their masks, the duo had soon dug a deep pit into the ground just outside the cave. Once this was done, Sato used his lifter mask to carry large chunks of sulfur out of the cave and drop them into the pit. Immediately it was in place, Sato used his vast scientific knowledge to add the special ingredients to the sulfur to convert it into the powerful, metal-eating sulfuric acid.
"We're as ready as we'll ever be,"
Sato informed his teammates in the Gator Jeep by radio. By now, the mask agents had returned to where they had first encountered Rosman. The Gator drove around, and the mask agents tried to make as much noise as possible to attract the robot. Then, even above the noise being made by the agents, a loud growl was heard close by. "Hit the accelerator! Lizzie's here!" Brad called out as a clump of trees parted to reveal the towering giant robot. "Way ahead of you," replied McLean as the turbocharge kicked the Gator into full power. "Mayhem's programmed it to fight to the end of a battle, so if we want it to follow, we'll have to give it something to come after," explained Dusty Hayes, sitting behind the roll bar gun and opening fire on the robot. As the mask agents had planned, the massive robot followed them through the jungle. "Can't you make this thing go any faster?" asked Brad Turner as they raced, twisting and turning through the undergrowth. Just then, they found themselves in a clearing and saw Matt and Sato calling to them from beside the sulfur caves. Matt and Sato were pointing out the area of the pit so that the Gator could avoid plunging into its own trap. The Gator easily avoided the pit and swung around to face the approaching robot. Each agent held his breath as the huge machine inched closer and closer to the pit. If it missed the pit, there would be no second chance, and probably no mask. Just then, the robot let out a long cry as it slid down through the hidden top of the pit, concealed with a carpet of leaves. It hit the pit of acid, and the many openings in the robot armor allowed the acid to seep inside. For a moment, the outside of the robot looked normal, but already the inner workings had been damaged beyond repair. However, the mask agents had no time to celebrate as Matt ordered them back to their vehicles. "I have a feeling we weren't the only ones to see this fight," he said as he powered the weapons in the Rhino. "Let's see if we can find Venom before they get a chance to do anything else." Mask had only just begun to search for the Venom headquarters when the air became alive with the hiss of lasers and the blast of rapid cannon fire. "Reckon we can stop looking for Venom," joked Hayes. "I think that's 'em a-shooting at us." "Must have been watching things on the monitor," Matt said, swinging the Rhino out of the way of the attacking jackhammer Venom attack vehicle. For several minutes, the mighty fighting machines danced around each other, firing volley after volley of deadly weaponry. High in the sky, the Switchblade copter kept a close watch on the battle, as the Piranha and Jackhammer held their own against the mask vehicles. Inside the Rhino, Sato opened the side door and jumped out. All he had time to do was explain to Matt that he had a plan to end the battle. Matt was too stunned to reply, as he used all his skills to fend off an attack coming from the Jackhammer. In the air, Mayhem was beginning to feel more confident. The natives had already mined the mineral they needed. If Venom could drive Mask away, they would still be able to put his scheme into operation. Before Mayhem could do anything else, his eyes caught sight of a terrible vision. "No, it's not possible. I thought it was only a legend," screamed the amazed Mayhem as he watched the real Rosman march from the jungle and stride towards his men. Just as Mayhem was beginning to get his senses under control, he realized that Rosman was flying towards him. "Abort mission," ordered the fearful Mayhem. Immediately, the Venom agents called off their attack and drove away. Within moments, a strange silence had fallen over the jungle as the sounds of battle faded, and the masked machines purred to a halt. The only man-made sound that could be heard now was the low hum from Sato's lifter mask as he held the shell of the acid-burned robot in the grip of his beam. "So, that's where you were going," joked Matt, as the brave Sato lowered the robot to the ground.
"Yes, I remembered that the outer shell of the robot was not yet damaged. Knowing how cowardly Venom are, I figured they would turn tail and run at the sight of the real Rossmann.
Now all we have to do is explain to the Hongas what has happened. I'm sure they'll be just as glad as we are to learn that Rossmann has not returned, Brad said. The agents went back to their vehicles, and Brad mentioned that he may as well return to Boulder Hill with them. After all, I can't see them making a movie about a monster with no monster to star in it. When they collect the insurance, they'll start again, encouraged Matt. And anyway, you don't have to make a movie to be a star. Everyone who fights against evil is a star, and you're one of the brightest.